Library. Today's program will begin momentarily. Supported by Verso Studios, created locally and shared with the world.
Welcome, everybody, to tonight's special double feature, a conversation with Jason Pritchard and Christine Timmons. I'm Carol Erger-Fass, and I'm the exhibit curator here at the library. British-born Jason Pritchard is best known for his oil paintings of coastal New England. Inspired by British landscape painters John Constable and Thomas Gainsborough, he often paints en plein air, capturing the atmosphere of the seascape with his artful brushstrokes and striking color palettes. When we spoke about doing this exhibit, I was thrilled that Jason decided to create a whole new series of paintings that focus just on Westport, which seems to have been a pretty good idea judging by how many red dots there are on the wall. Christine Timmons works in collage, which grew out of a lifelong interest in textiles, design, and working with her hands. It's an apt medium for someone with her diverse background, ranging from teaching French language and literature to editing encyclopedias and magazines. Along the way, she's taken classes in painting and printmaking, collage, photography, jewelry making, and bookbinding. And as many of you probably know, Chris was also the exhibit curator here at the library for many years. So this is kind of a full circle moment, and it's an honor to have her work now hanging on these walls. I want to thank our moderator, Miggs Boroughs, and the library's amazing art committee, and Verso Studios for recording tonight's presentation. Thanks, and enjoy.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming. Thanks to Carol and the library, Bill Harmer, for embracing the arts the way they do since the renovation. And it's just a great venue for art. And so here we are. They're two different, very distinctly different, a collage artist, an oil painter. So I just thought I'd start off with a softball question, and that is, Jason, have you ever tried collage?
Never tried collage. Use the mic.
Oh, yeah, you have to, it should be, it's on, yep. Just have to hold it close.
Okay, never tried collage, no.
Okay, and I have to ask you, Chris, have you oil painted or painted?
Yes, I tried it, and it was a disaster. And I decided, gotta move on from here. But I really admire what you're doing, yeah.
I'm just curious, what didn't you like about what the results were? Why was it a disaster, do you think?
Well, you'll see a picture of
Okay.
one of these. There was one wonderful aspect, which I'll tell you when we get here, but it had nothing to do with oil painting per se.
Okay. Well, we'll kick it off. What we're gonna do in order to get everybody, we're gonna show five Chris, five Jason, back and forth, so we get a mix of everybody. So this is first slide for Chris, and you can.
This, I was in Madison, Wisconsin, working on a master's degree in French. And when it came time to sign up for a next round of classes, I had figured out, oh my God, they've got a wonderful art department here. Let me just look at what's going on over there. And so when I went to sign up for classes, I signed up for an art class. And the next day I got a phone call from the admissions department saying, excuse me, you're a French major, why are you taking art classes? And I said, well, I would like to. And they said, well, and they sort of argued with me, and they said, okay, okay. And the next day, I got another phone call from another somebody or other. I said, look, I just like art. Don't worry, I'm gonna finish this French, master's in French. Don't worry, but just let me take the art class, and they did. And this is, I had a room on Lake Mendota, and which is the big lake there, and I just had a couch with a pull-out bed and a little burner stove in the closet where, and that was it. I had no table to draw on or anything, so I would sit on the floor and draw and put a mirror up, have a lot of drawings of feet.
Oh, so that's a self-portrait of you
That was
scribbling on the floor?
Self-portrait of me, yeah,
Okay.
it's drawn on the floor.
And here's,
When I finished this French degree, I went to Chicago and taught. I didn't have a teaching certificate, just a master's in French. And I taught at the Latin School of Chicago, which was a private school, and wonderful school. I really enjoyed teaching there. And I would take classes. I realized the Art Institute had a really good school on the back side of the Art Institute itself, and so I started going and taking classes. And this thing, I don't have much left from those things. This was about teaching you how to do, if you were going to go into textile design, how to do a drop repeat for a textile, and then have several colorways. Pretty tight.
yeah.
And here we come. Here
Okay,
was
this is painting, this is your,
here was the effort with the watercolor, and you can already see that it's going abstract. You don't even know what you're looking at. It was a white robe on the back of my closet door and a chair in the room. And I tried doing more stuff. It was terrible. It was just terrible.
I think it's
And
that bad, but.
And this was back in the day. No, I was in Chicago, so I don't know. Anyway, it was terrible, suffice it.
Is this your first collage attempt, or which one is this?
No, when I moved out here, I started going to, what's the name of it? In New Haven on Audubon Avenue, the artists' work, that's not quite the right name, but anyway, there's a wonderful school in New Haven, and I started going and taking printmaking classes, and I fell in love with printmaking. But when you're just starting, you can do a print, and half of it's terrible, but they may be a little square that's wonderful. And this actually is not, this is part of, down the road, I started taking classes with somebody who was effectively doing collage. She didn't call it that. Anyway, this was a bunch of old drawings and random paintings and stuff ripped up and made into a new collage. And this very bad image, I didn't have a decent camera then. This is what I began doing, was taking old collages, ripping them apart, and reconfiguring them to make a new collage. And this one, I'm really sorry I don't have a good picture of it, because it was a nice piece, and it lives in a condo in Miami now.
Oh. So it's happy. Okay, we're going to jump to Jason for a little bit, but part of this, hopefully, as we go along, we'll see, even though your mediums are different, that there'll be some artistic overlap here in terms of composition or whatever. So, Jason, this first one?
So this is completely something different. So all the paintings you see over in the South Gallery there are all oil paintings. I just wanted to kind of include a couple of my earlier work that I did. This was 20 years ago. Pretty much, I moved from England to the US, to New York City for work in 2005, so literally about 20 years ago now. And a lot of my kind of peers were kind of moving to the city, and I had a passion for surfing, so as well as art, obviously. It was a piece that I did in Long Beach, Long Beach, New York, not California, but Long Beach, New York. in the summer and or throughout the winter, I'd go surfing, and I kind of also found like an art community, West End Arts they were called, who kind of got me into more the public domain and doing things outside of my comfort zone. So, for example, I did, watercolor demonstrations as part of a show a couple times. So that was just kind of like my first, This one here was more, I did a lot of traveling in those early years in the US. This is actually in Puerto Rico. The reason watercolor was, meaningful back then was it was very portable. So I would, bring in my suitcase a small little watercolor palette and a couple pieces of paper. And I started doing these postcards where I would send them to various friends or myself and use them as bits of artwork. Sometimes it would cause a bit of a confusion in the post office when I was going to post it and go, oh no, you have to put the stamp on the back. And I said, no, this is part of the artwork. I need to date it. And that was kind of an ongoing theme, but I included that one. This was, I think this was about 15 years ago. This was part of an exhibition I did in my town of Fairfield, where I live. It's the Green in Fairfield. And it was, I think the show, it was my first solo show, so that's why I included it for this, but it was called In All Fairfieldness. And it had just pretty much watercolors like this one as part of it, so.
Was this plein air and plein air?
This was in my
quote
unquote studio at the time, probably.
Because I'm curious about. Okay, well, let's talk about this first.
Yeah, so this is my first foray into oil painting. I often get critiqued a bit that I don't paint enough people in my beaches, so I thought I'd include this one, which has got a lot of people in. But this was when I was also working in the city, and I used to go to the Art Students League after work, and it's called the Umbrella Sellers because it just fascinated me. Whenever it rained in New York City, you would get a bunch of people right outside Grand Central, or this was actually Penn Station, and sell you umbrellas on demand. So I just thought it was an interesting theme. But I would like to maybe one day go back into doing more cityscapes because I find it interesting as well. But I just wanted to include that one.
So in reading your statement, when you do plein air, whatever the correct, I mean, you do like a painting sketch and then you bring it back and do a full painting, or you do the full painting out there in the open? Yeah,
it's usually, I mean, if I'm a busy person, so I got, my kids at the back there as well and family, so they're waving. So I don't have much time, unfortunately, and I would love to, spend some time on a full day doing a full painting out there, but I usually do a small oil sketch effectively, usually a color study. I think I've included one in here as well, which we'll get into later, but basically they're small studies, calibrating the colors that I'm seeing at the time, the feelings, and I also supplement those with pictures, and we'll produce the stuff that you see at the back and on the gallery side.
Okay, bouncing back to Chris, and this.
Yeah, this.
Microphone up to your microphone.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
This was when I was working I was the editor of at Taunton Press for Threads magazine, and we would get a lot of, we went around the country interviewing authors. Threads is, if you don't know Threads, Taunton Press does fine woodworking, fine home building, fine cooking, several more, and fine gardening. And Threads was their textile garment and quilt making magazine. And the other editors people would bring us scraps of things, and in fact, Mood Fabrics used to occasionally give us things. And these were textiles, and these were scraps from silks. And I started playing around making collages with them. And
so the collage, are there principles to collage? I mean, do you start like you see a scrap of something and then you build around it, or you just compile a whole bunch of things and arrange them like a puzzle until you're happy with the composition, or can it start?
Depends on who the artist is, I
Yeah.
guess. Uh, Mostly, like I had this photographer who was taking a lot of these decent shots, and he was fooling around with his camera, and I saw something on my top of my flat files, and I was standing there just playing with things, and it's like, okay, it's the next collage.
Yeah.
I know I got to just move it on. But there's a lot of just playing with things. I've always liked, organizing this, that, and the other together. Oh, this looks much better over here. And I like that. This was a 50th anniversary image that I made for some very dear friends, and the daughter of the friend got in touch with all her friends and said, please send her a card. And I thought, okay, wait, I'm gonna make her something. And it turned out to be this collage that's a combo of fabric and watercolors, and there's some torn up paper stuff, and then finally and it says there's a 50 in here turned on its side. I think maybe there are 2 5s and a couple of zeros there. And there's also, you can't see it very well in these images, but it's sewn. I used to do a lot of sewing at Threads, and I ruined a lot of needles doing this on paper. But anyway, that's what this is. And this piece is called Red Wall, and I discovered early on in collage making that Home Depot has wonderful paint chips, wonderful, gorgeous colors. And I got all excited and started just piling in. You can take them, as many as you want from Home Depot. And then I thought, you know what, you better start doing your own. But anyway, that's what's part of what you see here with the white and the different magenta colors. And I used it in a lot of things, and sometimes I paint over, Somebody basically told me, another collagist told me, get away from the paint chips, make your own. And this is one that has a whole lot of images combined in it and fabric in there too. And I love text, and frequently I will cut up text. You'll see in another bit. I was a French teacher, and then I was an English teacher, and I've spent something like 33 years being an editor, book and magazine editor. Words are important to me. I love text, but I also love confused text. And there's another one coming down the line that shows, I like turning things upside down, and this one,
This is this is from a photo by Bill Harmer, right?
Yes, of the library director, Bill Harmer, from the renovation, which happened during the last couple of years I was here. And he and I were comparing photographs of what we had taken, what was going on downstairs. And I'm crazy about ladders and stairs. And he showed me this. I said, oh my God, Bill, can I use this? Would you let me use this and I'll give you credit? He said, yeah, and when you make your first $1 million on it, I want half of it. I said, you got a deal. Anyway, this one is the first encaustic that I ever did. And encaustics are hot pigmented wax. And they produce, when you work with them, they produce a very interesting, mysterious quality to the image. And I fell in love with encaustics, and this was the first one. And very soon after, there's 2 more. One that we've got another picture, and there's one more over there. And COVID happened very shortly after I left the library. And so this was at the Rye Art Center that I was taking classes. They all shut down for 2 years, like everything. And so did my encaustics, but I've started trying to work again in it, so I'm excited about that. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Jason. Well, I was reading your, you attribute Gainsborough as an inspiration. And what is it about his work that you would try to convey in your work?
So I grew up in East Anglia, where Thomas Gainsborough and John Constable, pretty much painted a lot of their scenes. I was actually in the county of Norfolk, and they were kind of painted around Suffolk, which is the next county along. So I guess Constable's obviously sky painting, a lot of English countryside. This is where is it? This is Dyersville in Iowa, which is the Field of Dreams movie site. Oh. And the reason I included it was, again, it's an oil painting I did at the Art Students League. I did a whole project to visit all 50 states in the US, and I haven't painted all 50, but I plan to do that one day. But this was, I'm not a huge baseball fan, but I just love the movie, and I don't know, it was just something that was different and countryside, and
I mean, what I particularly noticed, which I think is part of your sense of place, which that's what your paintings convey, is a real sense of place. But the foreground, I mean, with these leaves in the foreground, they're right in your face. But without them, it's still a beautiful painting, but it's a big, wide open landscape. But all of a sudden, I mean, with those leaves, the viewer feels like they're almost hiding behind those leaves, looking at the scene. I mean, is that something you're obviously, it's obviously, you did it deliberately, but what do you have in mind when you do that? Do you want to put the viewer in kind of?
I think, if you've watched the movie, that they walk through the kind of cornfields. There's some other subtle thing about the leaves. I don't know if you notice it, but the state of Iowa is that shape.
Oh,
that shadow.
Oh,
so
that's interesting. I didn't. Okay.
Also,
the little Easter egg. Yeah.
These are corn leaves. Yeah. So, but yeah.
Okay.
So this is Cape Cod. I'm doing a whole series, multi-year project of all the Cape Cod beaches, or as many as I can get through. My wife's family lives in Cape Cod, so we go up there a couple times a year. And this is Old Silver Beach in Falmouth, so one of the earlier ones I did about a couple of years ago, I think it was now. Again, it goes with the theme of seascapes and beaches. And
so you mentioned in your, I don't know if it's your artist statement, that the skies are impressionistic and the scenes are more, I don't know, what you call traditional, realistic, whatever. So are you thinking when you start with the sky and go to the landscape, or vice versa? Because it's two different styles, right?
It is.
I mean, because I know this was one, and I forget the name of it, but where the sun is streaking through, and obviously your paintbrush is in a diagonal, you're streaking the light through the clouds.
Yeah. Old Mill Beach, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just sometimes I can get inspiration if I'm just driving along in the car, and I'll tell my wife, "Oh, can you take a picture of those clouds?" Because they're kind of interesting to me. I don't know. It's.
Have you ever done clouds or a sky without a landscape?
I've done a series of Fairfield beaches actually with just called cloud studies, like winter cloud study, autumn cloud study, with just kind of a lighthouse. So this was This was very loose on the clouds here, no detail at all. It's just more brushwork than anything. And this is also another Cape Cod painting on a stormy day in Chappaqua Beach, I think it's called, in Falmouth. I think the locals call it Old Chappie, or I think I call it Old Chappie. But yeah, it's a kind of beach hut place.
Great clouds.
Thank you.
Well, they're all, the sky, it's a whole world. Yeah.
This one's interesting because this one's imaginary, and it's called Northern or Dev Folk, depending on which way I look at it. So I'm from the county of Norfolk in England. In Norfolk, you have very flat fields, which you see on the left. So that's kind of a depiction of the fields in Norfolk. Where my parents and my grandparents lived and came from in England is in Devon, which is the complete opposite direction, 360 miles southwest. And this was a kind of where my grandma lived in Devon. It was it's more of a hilly area anyway, but I haven't really depicted that in the paintings so much. But it's supposed to be more the countryside roads where, in the county of Devon. So that's why, split those two words up. But
So but it was all just in your
it's all made
memory.
Up.
Memory
It's
of
made up
like-
from the memory of, that was a lane I used to go down to my grandma's and, going in family road trips in Norfolk, the county of Norfolk. I would have those flat fields to kind of, so yeah.
But if anybody's wondering why we're staring, it looks like we're staring at the floor.
Yeah.
There's a TV monitor down here that shows that, so we don't have to twist our necks all the time. So
Yeah.
that's why we're staring down there.
This is another Norfolk landscape scene, or it's called Wells Next to the Sea, and it's kind of a very popular place in North Norfolk where there's a lot of these beach huts, beautiful beach huts. There's a lot of beach towns that have these beach huts. You don't really see them in the US, but I included that one because I kind of like the sky. Very different to my other skies.
And a lot of your work has these kind of, this one, these kind of meandering, distant trails and paths that who knows where they go, but they're kind of intriguing because it pulls you in, it pulls the viewer in.
Yeah.
Nice to see the brush strokes in those skies.
Yeah.
I've never seen anybody else do that.
Microphone. You have to talk, Chris.
Sorry. It's nice to see the brush strokes in the skies.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Really nice and unusual.
Yeah, because when you look, as you get closer, they're clouds, and then you get closer, and then they're brush strokes that make clouds. Anyway, back to Chris. So is this part encaustic?
Yeah, it's an encaustic.
Oh, the whole thing is?
Yeah, the whole thing is. And it is, I was, again, just learning how to do this, and I had a photograph. The left side of the picture is part of a photograph I took right outside our apartment in this 1890s building, and I had an encaustic going, and I decided, wait a minute, there's too much aqua in here. I got to do something about it. So I was at home because this class had effectively stopped. And I got out. Oftentimes, most people start by working on a pancake griddle because you got to have something that heats up enough to melt the wax. And so I decided, I'm just turn on the pancake griddle and then I will get back to it. And I had a very big lesson that I learned. You do not sit down and read your email.
Well, wax is boiling on the...
And when I came back to it, it was just aqua wax all over the place. And I lost everything except that one part of the photograph on the left. And I was furious, just furious. And about 90 seconds later, I said, so what are you going to do about this? You better go figure it out. And I went upstairs, and I have big... like cellophane folders divided into colors, and I started looking into the folders to see what have I got, because everything else was ruined. And I found in there a stub of a ticket from the Evita Peron Museum in Buenos Aires. And I thought, oh my God, those eyes, I love those eyes. That's why I saved the ticket. I started it there, and I just built up from there, and some of it is stuff I painted, and this is anyway, it's a lot of different stuff. Some old collage bits in there too. And this was part of a series that I made near the 2020 election, and I was always listening to, what's his name, Steve Kornacki, Blue States, Red States, and I was working on this piece which has a bunch of vintage kimono fabric in it, and as well as paper things. And I said, okay, this one's called Blue State 1, and then coming up next is Blue State 2. And this was torn out of, the background of it was torn out of an old Art in America magazine. And it was some sort of, I don't even remember, but it had a Nazi swastika under there. And I thought, that's gotta go. And so part of it, the bottom part is, the very bottom is, again, a vintage kimono scrap. The next part is just something watercolors I did. And then there are buttons. There are 2 buttons in this. I love buttons. And one of them is at the top of this blue and white column, and the other one is right here in the thing. Really interesting buttons. Anyway, that was Blue State 2. Blue State 3, and this was at Threads magazine. I don't know if anybody knows that magazine or ever followed one of the senior editors, David Page Coffin, who was an expert on making men's shirts. He wrote a book on it, and this was fabric from the cover of that book. And I love that, and he died, unfortunately, last year, way too young. Anyway, so that was Blue State 3, and then I thought, I gotta do a Red State. And I thought, oh God. So I wanted it to be as chaotic. Forgive me, I don't know what your politics are, but I was after chaos because that's the way I felt. And that was a combination of all sorts of stuff. This polka dot thing is from an old dress that I have, and I love it's the shoulder pad in an old dress that I have that I just loved. And a lot of these were images from various and sundry places.
You admit, I think in your statement over there, you work with, I don't know how you phrased it, but tension and harmony, which sound contradictory. So when you start a piece like this, it's all going to be all about harmony, or it's going to be all about tension?
Both.
Both.
Both. I mean, I'm looking for something that is interesting to my eye, where if there's no tension, what's to look at?
Yeah.
You know? But I want it to fit together.
Okay.
You know? And I'm not exactly consciously saying I want tension here. I'm just, when I'm playing around with this stuff, I'm looking for things that both fit together and that have some edge to them.
And
we're back. Is this Westport, or where are we?
This is Fairfield, and
Fairfield. Okay.
There are some people in the picture. This was the rationale of including this one was I did a whole series of Fairfield County beaches, and I started pretty much with this one being Jennings Beach, I guess, in Fairfield. My questioning was, what should I paint now? I'll do Penfield Beach, and then what's next? South Pine Creek Beach, and then so I was like, whoa, what should I do after I've done all the Fairfield beaches? And then I went to the top of Fairfield County, so I started from Short Beach or Long Beach, I think it is, all the way down to Greenwich, and a whole series of about 50, 60 paintings. So this was one of the early ones I did.
So I think probably everybody's at one point or another has seen an artist out there on a beach or in a field or on a bridge with, a sun hat and an easel and the thing. Is there take a certain amount of courage to stand out there and do that? Because do you get people saying, what are you doing? What's that? When are you going to finish?
I do go early I think when I started doing on plein air painting, I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with it, and I loved being there in the moment, getting there, but I hated the whole, I'm in a nice warm studio, why would I want to go outside?
Right.
I have to find all my paints and get all the things, and then I would go sometimes and I'd forget something, and there was also, to your point, the nervousness, like, what if someone's coming who's, going to critique and go, that's awful, what are you doing, what are you wasting, but...
Or paint me.
Yeah.
Do they ever do that? Paint me,
no,
put me in the...
to be honest, like 99% of the time, I think all the time, to be honest, everyone's been very complimentary, but it's, it's just, it's...
has its risks.
Yeah, it has its risks. This is Otter Cliff in Arcadia National Park in Maine. I think I wanted to include a lot of the larger ones. These are more, I don't know, 3-4 foot long. And while the ones you're seeing in this show are all 24 by 30 inch. And I normally paint either that format or 18 by 36, but I wanted to show a couple pieces that were larger in nature. This was Otter Cliff, which was just, another traveling moment where I went to Maine. I found the place beautiful, near Bar Harbor. I painted that in oil. No, that's oil painting, yeah.
There's people.
So this is my kids. This is at the back waving. This hangs in our living room as just a piece of my 3 kids. So it has a special meaning from that perspective.
Have you ever painted portraits face on?
I have done some. I did some early ones when they were growing up, but I like it. I just don't have enough time in the day to practice. It's just another skill.
A whole discipline.
Yeah. And some of them were okay. Some of them were not so good. But
And there's something intriguing about you're just the viewer again is kind of involved because you're watching people and you're imagining who they are.
So this one, this was another large one. I think it was 4 foot long. I don't know. The reason it's Penfield Beach is the closest beach to where I live. There's an interesting. I think it was. It's called In Between the Storm Clouds. I think I called it or something like that. But there's actually in my mind there's a different. Because it's a home from home, and the fact that I represent this as my home. I'm obviously from England. If you kind of look into the clouds, you'll see what resembles the United Kingdom.
Oh, really? The shape of the
So there's
UK?
Scotland, and Norfolk is up on the right, which is where I'm from, and there is Devon.
There's a lot of little
So it's a little
Easter eggs in your painting.
Yeah.
Okay,
And that's
cool.
like on the left would be Wales. So that the cloud was designed in that way specifically. It wasn't like that when it was. I mean, the day when I went out there was stormy like this, and it was one of those beautiful days where you get the sun coming through. Amazing colors, and I thought, oh, that would make a great picture. And then I kind of adopted it to have the United Kingdom.
I guess one of the benefits of painting clouds is nobody can go back there and say, hey, they don't look like that.
Yeah.
They did when I was there, but.
And you can also experiment them. So I think some people in the audience, Danielle, Jonathan, will recognize this one as one of them. This was just a painting. I included it because, again, it was one of the larger paintings, and it's, Southport, as you go looking out towards the Long Island Sound. I just liked the way it was executed and came off, and it was just one of those paintings where I just was happy with the results. So.
Yeah. Okay, we're back to another Chris microphone.
Yep.
Thank you.
This one's called Lemon Ice, and this I plucked out to put in this because of the what I did with the type. Cut off sections, cut it down the middle, turned it upside down, turned it sideways. I don't know why, but I just like. There's more mystery. I like not quite knowing what you're looking at.
You said upside down, so I've asked abstract artists this too, and maybe it's, I don't know if they're offended by it, but if you sold this to somebody and you went to their house and it was they hung it upside down, would you care?
Fine. I mean,
okay.
When you're dealing with a painting, an abstract painting particularly, if you've got any sense, you turn it around and look at it in different angles. When you think it's finished, turn it around or whatever. You may find that, it works much better completely flipped than what you had in mind.
Yeah, I think even with fine art, I mean, if you want to test your composition, right, you could turn it upside down, and if it still has a composition.
A little trick I sometimes do is I put it in a mirror, so it flips it the other way, and you can see different mistakes or things that are not quite right that way. Or you may get a different view and perspective of it and go, oh, I should have done it that way, maybe for next time.
But yeah, I mean, I had a teacher once that said, it shouldn't matter. Whatever way you turn it, it should, not that it, if it's literal, it won't, you know, something will be upside down, but the composition should still be pleasing. But
Yeah.
Oh, this is,
microphone, sorry.
give me some.
Yeah.
This is Ode to Cy, being Cy Twombly. And I love his scribble drawings. And I altered them slightly because in theory you shouldn't just take them and accommodate them. But I love his work, and I all of a sudden had all these. This is the piece on the side is again more antique kimono, vintage kimono fabrics, other fabrics, some translucent ribbon. I don't know, all this stuff just appeared out of my aqua folder, you know?
Do you have flat files, like a studio
Yeah, I
filled
do
with
have flat files.
filled with just scraps and pieces and things?
No, mostly the flat files are filled with drawings or stuff in progress. And I've got on the floor a box with these clear plastic folders, you know, aqua, green, pink,
I see.
whatever. So
People ever give you, I don't know if you do commissions, I'm not trying to promote your, but I mean, people ever say, here's a picture of my grandmother, could you do a collage with this? I mean, does that ever?
that
hasn't happened yet?
It hasn't happened.
Oh, well, here's a picture of my grandma.
And this is, I called that this Joseph, it's Cornellish Box 1. This is Joseph Cornell, who did a whole lot of wonderful boxes with objects and images in them. And I really like his work. And so this was my version of a Cornellish box. And it looks like it would be very delicate because all the there are actual real falling apart leaves in there, but I ended up taking medium, acrylic medium, and which is what I use oftentimes to adhere the pieces. And then I went back and I thought anybody that might be interested in it is going to be nervous, and I would be too, that this stuff is going to fall off if you touch it. Well, it's totally slathered. You can't see it, but it's slathered and adhered with acrylic medium, so it's sealed.
Do you ever, and I'm going to ask Jason this also later, but do you ever have your husband, Gene, while you're in progress, come in and say, what do you think of this? Or do you just work alone and say, look what here's the latest piece? Do you ever ask opinions or ask?
I have in the past. He doesn't really get it. And I know he doesn't get it, and I know he doesn't like them, and I got past caring. And
I didn't want this to become the Jerry Springer show, but okay.
I noticed you have different words associated to certain things. How do you kind of choose what words you're putting into some of the collages? Like life and, I mean, that to me, Argentina and South America.
No, I just like the cork. And this one I wasn't trying to, you know, like in some of the earlier ones where there were actual lines of type, it might have been, but nah.
Just for the texture of it, or
it's just the look of it, like.
Yeah. No, I mean the texture. You know, the leaves and the graphic compared,
Yeah.
and the buttons. I mean,
Well, there's another piece of those Home Depot things, the bottom where the leaves are on. There's more of them there. Anyway, and this is, everybody, all the women in the audience know what these are, right? These are 1950s hair curlers that I found at a junk store in someplace in the Midwest when visiting a friend. And I just thought, I got to do something with these. And I was playing around, and I decided, well, there's Cornellish Box 2. So.
And this one, yeah, we're actually running out of. We're going to have to zip through some of the last slides.
This was, I was trying to figure out something. I thought I got to do something to fill one corner of this exhibit. And I'm going through the flat files looking for something else, and I came across all these big sheets of painted and, you know, I don't know what you call it, scarred, as it were, paper. And I thought, I totally forgot I'd painted all these things a couple of years ago, and I threw them on my desk, and they looked great together, and so I started playing with it. And then I found the blue parts that were in another file drawer, and I just threw it on them, and I thought, okay, we got the beginning of a collage. And this one, actually, usually I worry way too much. I worry them way too much. This one came together very quickly. Within a day and a half, I was done. Thank you, Lordy. I'll take some more of those. It was so much fun. It was so easy, this one. And that's part of what I'm working on now, is to make it easy again. Get off of this.
Free yourself up.
Yeah, yeah.
So we're going to speed through, because we want to get to some questions, so we only have a few minutes, but I'll speed through a few of these. This is your...
Yeah, so this is my plein air setup where I don't know which beach this is. I think this is Lantern Point. But again, the sketch is very, kind of basic in a way, but it's just a colored depiction of the clouds and the atmosphere at that point in time. But
this is a photograph of...
A photograph
of your setup, your plein air setup.
Yeah, and this is called a pochard box. When I was telling you about sometimes the love and hate relationship of on plein air, this is my field easel here. This is a pain to get up, and the wind takes it more. But the pochard box is which on the preceding picture is a much easier setup, and it's quicker to do. So that was. This is a good example where I've painted. Old Mill Beach in Westport, which is part of this show. That painting's the plein air cloud study, and I actually painted kind of directly in front of me, while the actual painting was a bit of the left-hand side. If you go to the next slide, you'll see Old Mill Beach, where we've got that kind of cloud effect with the sun rays coming in. And that's the fun thing about plein air. Sometimes you start off with a scene, and you're like, and then it's like, oh, I wish I'd done that, because the sun's hitting it beautifully now, and I'm like...
Well, that's the one I was referring to with the light streaking through, which is just, so that's sort of a leap of faith. I mean, you have control, you mastered your medium and all that, but because, the brush, I imagine it's a quick process, right? These brush strokes?
Yeah, for that effect, it would have been a quick brush stroke, yeah. This one is, I'm probably going to say the wrong name, Kokini Island, I can never say it right. A friend of mine took me out on the boat, and I went with my middle child, and I wanted to include it because we saw dolphins on the way back in the Long Island Sound this summer, so it was just a special memory from that trip.
Nice.
And I was like, oh, wow. I didn't include any dolphins in the painting, but it was...
They're there. They're just hiding.
This is me in a triptych painting of Lantern Point. Not much to say about that one.
Okay. Well, I think we have to stop, but I have one question about there's a painting, it's Old Mill, and it's out there. I don't think it was in the slideshow. But there's a flagpole or staff at a house way in the distance, and there's an American flag that could not be more than a 1/16 of an inch tall, but it's clearly an American flag. So, I mean, do you use a brush with like one hair in it? How do you know what I'm talking about? There's one of those flag staffs that have like there's one at the top and 2 flags.
Okay.
But it's so tiny, and yet it's clearly an American flag, and...
It's I use such a range of brushes, from 1-inch thick brushes for some of those cloud textures we were talking about earlier, and to your point, I use a very fine brush to get very small details now and again when I feel the need to it. But it's kind of a tricky balance, because you can get very finicky with too much detail, and the painting doesn't look right. It's not as spontaneous, or it hasn't got the impact you'd hoped it would. So it's a fine balance. You just have to.
Yeah, well, it's one of those little discoveries that's nice. You know,
Yeah.
there's something, I mean, there's other stuff that's kind of fuzzy maybe on purpose, so you don't, but you're, anyway. So we'll open up to questions if anybody has, and you have to stand, sorry, you have to walk over there and stand at the microphone, says people, this is being recorded, so we won't see you or hear you if you don't go over there and ask a question. Or if you shout it out, I'll repeat it. But ideally, you should go over there. Do you, in the meantime, do you have either of you have a question for one another? Does anything occur to you? Yeah.
Christine, one of the last painting pieces you showed, you had these marks. That you did a bunch of them. What was the tool that you made those?
So the question was, in one of your collages, there's kind of scrape marks. It looks like, you know, curvy scrape marks that were made.
Was it a comb or like what?
No, they were.
Microphone.
Sorry. They were ceramics tools for digging in around the thing, and I can't find them anymore. I don't know what I did with them, so I gotta go get some more of those. They were fun to do, easy and fun to do. Yeah.
Anybody else? All right, last call. I want to just thank you all. Thank Christine.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jason.
Yeah.